When you're taking a photo or video, you want to check your angles and your framing. One of the things that can make the biggest difference is a straight line, so having straight lines in your images. So sometimes it's very effective if you take an image on an angle and you can get it to work, but not the best photo. But generally speaking, straight lines, because if you're a little bit off, it just looks a little bit slapdash and odd. So if you're going to go on an angle, normally you want to go on quite a distinct angle and still consider your framing and what's in shot, rather than just being a little bit wonky, donkey. And also, depending on how far back you are and what you have in frame will greatly affect things compared to how close you are or the angle that you shoot from. It all affects it. Having more in shot, changing the angle slightly, having less in shot, changing the angle. So it's just always worth experimenting, trying things from a few different angles and considering how that affects the image. Shooting at a high angle straight down can be really effective, but again, you can see my slippers. The precise angle is going to affect how well the image works. So I can't quite see what I'm doing because I'm holding this above eye level, but I'm trying to make sure my lines are straight rather than on a bit of a wonk, and the things I want to frame. When we look at editing apps, I'll show you how you can straighten things up, but I'm just bearing in mind I want it to be fairly straight and have what I want in frame and have no distractions that I don't want in frame. Sometimes to get a successful bird's eye view you need to get up onto a stool, as long as it's safe to do so, or a step ladder, a chair, something similar, just to give you a little bit more height, but so you can still see the camera. Generally speaking, if you're taking a video or photograph of yourself or another person, it's more flattering to have the camera or the phone at a slightly higher angle, looking very slightly down on the person, or even more extreme if you want, but generally just above eye level, looking down slightly, compared to having it at a low angle. Yet when you look online, quite often when you see people doing talk to camera pieces or taking selfies, it is more this sort of angle, and then everyone complains there's all the chins. So if you're worried about having all the chins, just lift the camera up a little bit. And also you can stick your chin out a little bit, not in a Jimmy Hill sort of way, if anyone's old enough to remember who Jimmy Hill was, but just a little bit. Just make sure that you're sitting up nice and straight and have good posture. But like I say, more often than not we tend to get these sort of up nose shots from people, especially like say if they're doing talk to camera, because they've rested the phone on something and it's pointing in an upward motion. So if I demonstrate on here, it's like shooting like that up at yourself, and that's never going to be particularly flattering. Here's another example of how having straight lines and considering your angles really affects a photograph. So if I just go off slightly and pull back a little bit, it doesn't look quite as striking as if I straighten up and frame it a bit better. And again, if I change my angle, that looks very different to that, to that, to that. And if any of you are wondering what on earth this is, one of my students does origami, so she made an origami dragon out of copper, which is no mean feat because obviously metal is an awful lot stiffer and harder to move than paper. But this just shows what a dramatic difference changing your angle can have, and your framing, depending on what's in shot and what's not. So, like I say, it's good to spend a little bit of time just experimenting, but more importantly, when you come to photograph something, I can't tell you how important it is to keep looking. So many times I see people take photographs of stuff and it's very obvious they haven't actually looked at what they're photographing, because there'll be a lamppost coming out the top of somebody's head, or half the thing they were trying to photograph isn't quite in shot, or it's on a really sort of weird wonky angle with the tail chopped off. Whatever the case may be, it's just to encourage you to actually look and spend a bit of time considering. Here's another example of an eye level shot compared to something that more normally you would see from a higher angle in real life. So coming down at eye level just makes everything a bit more intimate. You can see everything nice and clearly. Change the framing compared to, like I say, this is closer to real life in terms of what I'm seeing with my eyes. And then if I come down really low, that copper bar's in the way, but you can see how coming down at a low angle makes everything more dramatic, makes things look bigger. And every time I change angle, it's affecting how the shot looks and how well it works or doesn't work, as the case may be. When you get distractions like this bit of copper coming into shot, so I'm going to move again, keep changing and considering my angle until I find something that I'm happy with.